Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at how to write a review. Now specifically this video has been designed for anyone that is studying level 2 functional skills, however it is going to apply to anyone that is studying either entry level or level 1 functional skills as well. So through this video we're going to try and understand the key elements to pass the writing exam. If you haven't done so already, please can you like and subscribe, it really does help us out when you do so. So the first thing I'd like you to do then is, if we have a look at those images, I'd like you to try and think about what kind of things might you be asked to write a review about. If you can think about a stretch and challenge yourself as well, try and think about what are the kind of conventions that you'd be expected to include in a review, and how might this differ from the other forms of writing that you've studied so far. If you want to pause the video here and think about it in a bit more depth, please feel free to do so. Again, use the images that are given there and try and have a real think what kind of topics could come up in the writing exam if you get a review. Class feedback. Check your answers against the ones below. So for our possible topics then, we have things like a book review, a TV or film review, a food review, or a review of a day out or an experience. Now typically it's unlikely they're going to do things like a book review, because it's unlikely that every single learner will have read a book recently, so it's much more likely that they're going to go for one of the other options. Now when we think about the conventions or the typical features of a review, the typical things I'd expect you to include are things like a title and paragraphs that starts off. When you actually think about paragraphs as well, this is something that you should include in every form of writing, because it's a basic thing to include for a good quality written piece. Next we have subheadings. This is if it's necessary. So for example, if you're doing a food review and you're reviewing a restaurant, you could talk about separating it into 3 different subheadings potentially. For example, starter, main and dessert. Next we have an overview. So have you actually clearly given an overview of what it is that you're reviewing, and does the person actually understand whether it's a product, whether it's an experience, a book, a TV show or a film. The 5 W's. Now if you're not too sure what we mean by this, we've got another video that goes into a lot more depth about it. Essentially we're talking about who, what, where, why, when and also how. So if we're thinking about, let's say, a TV series, how can you watch it? There's a number of different platforms available these days, so adding little details like that, whether it's available on iPlayer, Netflix, Disney Plus, any of those kind of platforms would also be a good piece of detail to include in your writing. We'd also need to have a star rating. Now when we say a star rating, we don't literally mean that you need to draw 5 stars, for example. You can literally just say, I would give this 4 out of 5 stars or something like that. And that is just a good way to say that in my review I've outlined the good parts and the bad parts of the topic, and overall this is the rating I would give it. By the end of this video you'll be able to recall some of the key details about review writing. You're going to understand how to plan a response to an exam question, and then finally you'll be able to apply your understanding to practice responding to a written exam question. It's always important that you're getting feedback on this as well, so if you do get the time, please feel free to email us or to submit it to us, and we'll happily give you some feedback and some advice going forward. Look at the student response and attempt the questions that follow. So first of all then we're going to actually look at a response written by a student. I'm not going to tell you what the actual question is, because that's going to be something that I'd like to focus on later on in the video. So it says then, the responder is a crime or thriller TV series that was made by the BBC. In this programme we follow the central character, Chris Carson, Martin Freeman, as he struggles to tread the line between crime and following the law. The TV show is very dramatic and highlights the dangers faced by police officers who work on a night shift. As Chris struggles with his work, his personal life is thrown into chaos. This show is engaging, fast-paced, and will leave you desperate for the next series to begin. The programme also boasts a strong cast. The audience will feel sorry for Chris and the other characters, as they are forced to commit crimes to help support the greater good. So what I'd like to do here is just make sure that you've read through it, either by listening to me, or you can pause the video and go through it at your own time and get ready to respond to the questions in the next part of the video. So now what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at 6 questions based on the text that we've just read through. So for number 1, it says, Has the response included all of the 5 W's? Again, if you're still not too sure about it, do check out our other video, got a whole video just talking about the 5 W's. Number 2, what is the purpose of brackets in this response? So why have they been used? Number 3, identify where the writer has used a triplet or a group of 3. Now, if you're not too sure what we mean by this, we're referring to what we call DeForest techniques or AForest techniques. Now, hopefully you're familiar with this acronym. It will cover several of the key language techniques that you need for this kind of writing assessment. Look at the line. The program boasts a strong cast. How could this be improved further? So if you want to go back and look at the actual response, please feel free to do so. What we're essentially saying is that because they've said that they've got a really strong cast here, what else could they have done to build upon this idea? Number 5, look at the line, the audience will feel sorry for Chris. What would be a better word choice rather than the word sorry? And number 6, our final question, what do you think the writing question was? So we didn't actually get the writing question before we looked at the response. So I want to look back at the response, read through it again, and try and decide what question were they trying to answer. So try and write down what you think the question has specifically asked the reader, the writer, to do. Okay. If you need to pause the video here and go through it at your own time, please feel free to do so. We're now going to jump ahead and go through the answers. Class feedback. Check your answers against the teachers. So for number 1 then, so the response hasn't included all of the 5 W's. We're not told who would like the program. We're also not told when the program is scheduled. And I realise that this is something that we often actually don't include when we're writing about reviews, when we're talking about TV or films, because everything is so easily accessible these days on a number of platforms. However, it's not necessarily the case that something that's on Netflix will be on BBC iPlayer and vice versa. So it's important that we actually know, like, where can you find it, and does it have a set time that each new episode is uploaded, or does it come out on live TV? Number 2, so we're thinking about the purpose of brackets here then. So brackets have been used to add additional information. In this case, it was the name of the actor who played the main character. Number 3, the writer has used a triplet in the line. This show is engaging, fast-paced, and will leave you desperate for the next series to begin. So it's a triplet or a group of 3 because we've got 3 reasons essentially to watch this program. Number 4, the response needs to speak about the characters in more detail. So it's literally just said it has a big cast, or it's got a really amazing cast, which is fantastic. But who plays the characters? Surely that is something that is important to know in a review. Maybe if you're a fan of a specific actor or actress, and if they're appearing in this show, that's going to affect whether you want to watch it or engage in this program any further. What do they do in the program? Are they main characters? Are they just coming in for the one episode? And who plays them? So all of these are things that you could have went into more detail about in relation to the characters within the program. And then number 5, answers may include but are not limited to sympathise, empathise, or relate to. I really don't like the term saying we feel sorry for someone. Yes, it is good emotive language, but it seems very juvenile. I want to think about using the most appropriate word to replace it, the most appropriate synonym to make it sound more effective. Now, number 6, we're going to explain in more detail on the next slide. We're going to look at what the actual exam question was that the student was given at the start of the lesson. Writing question. Look at the question below and attempt the challenges that follow. So this is the question that the student was faced with before they wrote the response. So it says then, you've been asked to write a review for an online magazine about a TV show or film you have recently watched. In your review, you should write in the form of a review, structure your response appropriately, communicate in a clear and concise manner, use spelling, grammar and punctuation correctly, and you should aim to write between 250 to 300 words. Now it's important to think about the word count as well. I don't mean that you should be reading through every single word and keeping an active log of how much you've wrote. Essentially, it's not going to be any more than a full page to write for this. It's also important to note that within the actual writing exam, you'll have 2 different writing tasks. So you need to make sure that you're managing your time effectively. You're not doing more of the word count that you need to do for each task, and that way you can ensure that you're actually spending equal amount of time on both tasks and not getting overwhelmed. So the first thing I'd like to think about then is the challenge. Same thing we've looked at many times in our lessons is, can you identify the TAP of the exam question? So if you're not sure what we mean by that, we mean the topic, the audience and the purpose, and this is going to help you to break down specifically what needs to be written about in the exam. Next, for the super challenge, what kind of organisational or presentational features would you need to write a review? So that is just requiring you to think back to what we talked about at the start of the video. And then the mega challenge, attempt the writing challenge on the next slide to practice writing reviews. Writing task. Look at the challenges to help revise review writing. So for the first one then, what I'd like to do is to use everything we have covered within this video to attempt the writing question. The super challenge, I'd like you to create your own success criteria based on what we've covered today to make sure you include all the features of a review. And the final one, the mega challenge, submit your work for marking and feedback. If you are practicing, if you are doing a lot of time developing your writing, it's important that someone marks it and that someone gives you feedback so that you know how to improve and the things that you're already doing well. Now, if you don't have anyone like a teacher or a tutor to send that to, please feel free to give us a comment and we'll try and get back to you and happily to give any feedback should you need it ahead of your exam. In terms of our next lesson, we're going to go over the following things. So we're going to recall the writing question from this lesson, understand how to craft an effective response, and we're going to apply your understanding to draft and edit your own response to the exam question. It's really important that you keep hold of your writing, for example, keep looking back at it and seeing if you've developed and progressed throughout your course. Now, if you need any additional support, then new videos will be added every single week. Alternatively, you can leave us a comment below or visit our partner channel, Bookworm Teaching, for more lessons and guidance on all things English. Thanks ever so much for listening, guys, and all the best with your work and revision in the future. Bye bye.